Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is session 17 of our English recitations from the Ascendant Quran. This is an advanced English translation by Imam Muhammad al-Hasi, and it's been published by the Institute of Contemporary Islamic Thought and Dr. Zafar Bangash. Uh, yet, in our last session, we finished at Ayat 222 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Inshallah, in this session, we will start with Ayat 223 of Surah Al. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ayat 223, Surah Al-Baqarah. Your wife are your health. Go then unto your health as you may desire, but first provide something of a foreplay for your souls and remain on your guard concerning Allah's presence and know that you're destined to meet Him, and give glad tidings to those who are secure in their commitment to Allah. And do not allow your oaths in the name of Allah to become an obstacle to virtue and God commitment and the promotion of reconciliation between people. For Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Allah will not take you to task for oaths that you may have uttered without thought, but will take you to task only for what your hearts have conceived in earnest, for Allah is much forgiving, forbearing. Those who take an oath that they will not approach their wives shall have 4 months of grace, and if they go back on their oath, behold, Allah is much forgiving, extremely merciful. But if they are resolved on divorce, behold, Allah is all hearing, all knowing. And the divorced woman shall undergo without remarrying a waiting period of 3 monthly courses, menstruations, for it is not lawful for them to conceal what Allah may have created in their wombs if they have a faithful commitment to Allah and the last day. And during this period, their previous sex partners, husbands, are fully entitled to take them back if they desire reconciliation. But in accordance with common sense, justice, the rights of the wives with regard to their husbands are equal to the husband's rights with regards to them. Although men who provide for their families have a responsibility over them, the divorced women, and Allah is cherished, wise. A divorce may be revoked twice, whereupon the marriage must either be resumed in common sense fairness or dissolved in a finer manner. And it is not lawful for you to take back anything of assets that you have ever given to your wife unless both partners have cause to fear that they may not be able to keep within the bounds set by Allah. Hence, if you have cause to fear that the two may not be able to keep within the bounds set by Allah, there shall be no sin upon either of them for what the wife may give up to her husband in order to relieve herself. These are the bounds set by Allah. Do not then transgress them, for they who transgress the bounds set by Allah, it is they who are offensive and abusive. And if he divorces her finally, she shall thereafter not be lawful to him unless she first takes another man for husband. Then, if the latter divorces her, there shall be no sin upon either of the two spouses if they return to one another, provided that both of them think they will be able to keep within the bounds set by Allah. For these are the bounds of Allah that He makes clear to people who know. And so, when you divorce women and they are about to reach the end of their waiting term, then either retain them in a fair and reasonable manner or let them go in a fair and reasonable manner. But do not retain them against their will in order to hurt them. For he who does so sins and offends himself. For he and do not take these ayat of Allah in a frivolous spirit. And remember the blessings with which Allah has graced you, and all the revelation and the wisdom that He has bestowed on you from on high in order to admonish you thereby. And remain on guard concerning Allah, and know that Allah has full knowledge of everything. And when you divorce women and they have come to the end of their waiting term, hinder them not from marrying other men if they have agreed with each other in a fair and rational manner. This is an admonition to every one of you who is committed to Allah and the last day. It is the most upright way for you and the cleanest, and Allah knows, whereas you do not know. And the divorced mothers may nurse their children for 2 whole years if they wish to complete the period of nursing. And it is incumbent upon him who has begotten the child to provide in a fair and sensible manner for their sustenance and clothing. No living being shall be burdened with more than he is well able to bear. Neither shall a mother be made to suffer because of her child, nor because of his child, he who has begotten it. And the same duty rests upon the father's heir. And if both parents decide by mutual consent and counsel upon separation of mother and child, they will incur no sin thereby. And in this case, if you decide to entrust your children to foster mothers, you will incur no sin, provided you ensure in a fair manner the safety of the child who you are to hand over. But remain conscious of Allah, His power presence, and know what Allah sees, and know that Allah sees all that you do. And those of you who die and leave wives behind, the wives, shall undergo without remarrying a waiting period of 4 months and 10 days, whereupon, when they have reached the end of their waiting term, there shall be no sin in whatever they may do with their means in fulfillment of their feminine nature in a lawful manner. And Allah is aware of all that you do. But you will incur no sin if you give a hint of an intended marriage offer to any of these widowed women, or if you conceive such an intention without making it obvious. For Allah knows that you intend to ask them in marriage. Do not, however, make a solemn pledge of commitment for marriage with them in secret, but speak only in a decent manner. And do not proceed with tying the marriage knot before the ordained term of waiting has come to its end. And I know that Allah knows, and know that Allah knows what is in your minds, and therefore remain cautious of Him, and know too that Allah is much forgiving, forbearing. Sadaqallahu Azim. We end at Ayat 235 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Inshallah, in the next session, we will commence with Surah 236 of Surah Al-Baqarah. I hope and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with this message so that you can imbibe and live with it every day of your life. Alhamdulillah, ilahi amin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Wishing you all the very best. Assalamu alaikum.